The big story today remains the snow clearing operation, the myriad of difficulties people across the city have been experiencing all week long. And that got us thinking a little bit about the history of snow removal in Montreal. Yves Laberge is a sociologist and historian at the University of Ottawa who's documented how the process has changed over the decades. And Yves joins us now. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Hello.
So before the snow blowers, the 45-foot trucks, how did the city manage, say, 100 years ago? What did snow removal look like then?
100 years ago was an interesting period because there were lots of changes in the way we manage snow in big cities such as Montreal. Because at that time, there was a man from Montreal, whose name was Arthur Sicard. And he had the idea of a machine that would blow the snow, and that was quite revolutionary at that time.
So it all started here, the snow blowing part of it?
In a way, yes, although other people had the idea elsewhere, for example, in New Brunswick. But Sicard was the one who materialized, who built these machines and created an industry around these snow blowers.
Before we had these machines, back when, Montreal and New England were all sort of not predominantly car-driven neighborhoods, shall we say, when we had those cobblestone streets and everybody got around by horse and buggy, I imagine there was still some sort of concerted snow removal effort, correct?
Correct. Even though you are right when you say that the whole transportation thing was made around horses, but the horse could not push the snow. There has to be some installment, some machine that was behind the horse, and then the horse could manage to eliminate the snow. But the horse was not able to push the snow. And that's why when we had the first cars in the 1910s or 1920s, we could have, with the first trucks, a way to remove the snow, to push the snow, but yet we were unable to blow the snow, and that was the difference. To blow instead of to push the snow.
So before then, would the snow just be pushed to the sides, or I guess one of these plows would be dragged behind a horse, and the snow would move to the sides, and that was just it, and we wait till thaw?
Yes, we had to be patient, and remember back then in early 20th century, there were teams of employees who were just shoveling the snow, and they were working for the city. And they were just doing that. And remember, back then there was the tramway, and it was the same thing. There had to be employees who would make sure that the trams would be able to circulate despite the large amount of snow.
In conversation with Yves Laberge, sociologist and historian at the University of Ottawa, we had a caller earlier in the show who talked about a big snowstorm Montreal had in the early 70s and how much faster they were able to clear the snow. But the reality is there's a lot more cars on the road, and cars, honestly, are part of the reason that these snow removal operations take so long. I think people underestimate how long it takes to tow cars out of the way to be able to clear the streets. So how have things changed in the last 50 years?
Oh, it has changed a lot, and you are right. There are much more cars, much more people, and the city is bigger, larger, and we also have these bike lanes, which are difficult to manage with the snow because of their size and because of the many obstacles there are. And if the snow blowers hit just a piece of cement or concrete or wood, it could break, and then we have lots of trouble.
Yeah. You brought up the bike paths. I know that's something people in Montreal get very frustrated about when their sidewalk isn't clear, but the bike path is. But the reality is these are two completely different machines that clear bike paths versus sidewalks, right?
Yes, two different universes to manage. And you are right, there are so many sidewalks, many roads, many bike passes, so we have to manage all these different formats. So it's not just a big, wide street as we used to have 50 years ago.
I guess just sort of listening to you explain that, it makes me sort of think all these different installations that we've put in to try to make being a pedestrian or a cyclist safer in the city are making it more difficult for us in the wintertime to remove all of the snow.
You are right, but we don't think about it during the summer because we forget about the winter. But the winter it reappears every year or so, and we cannot escape that. And the other thing is that no matter what you have on the sidewalks, it could be a plant of flowers, it could be a tree, it could be a mailbox, anything. These are obstacles for managing or pushing the snow during the winter, and it makes things complicated because many obstacles in the winter time are invisible. They're covered by the snow.
Right.
And if you hit them with the machines, and it's a paradox because these snow blowers are very powerful, very useful, but at the same time, they are very fragile.
What do you imagine snow removal will look like 10, 15, 20 years from now? Are there more efficient ways of doing things? We were just talking off air with our producer, Dean, about, in Japan, they clear the snow and they store it somewhere and then use it for air conditioning in the summer. So I'm wondering what the future of snow removal might look like in Canada.
Yes, but it's always a matter of technology and money. As for any new invention, we have great ideas, but when we want to materialize them, sometimes it's expensive, complicated, and sometimes it is time-consuming. And that is the other thing here, is that we don't have much time. When we have a snowstorm, we want to get rid of the snow as fast as possible. And even faster than that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been hearing from a lot of our listeners about that all day. Yves Laberge is a sociologist and historian at the University of Ottawa talking about the evolution of snow clearing here in Montreal. I just wanted to ask you, we just got a text message from somebody saying that they seem to recall somewhere that Montreal businesses and business owners and property owners were expected to shovel their own sidewalks in the past. Do you think that by putting the whole responsibility on the city and taking some responsibility off of homeowners and individuals for their own portion of the sidewalk, we are kind of making it more complicated?
I think it was a good idea back then, but there were so many exceptions, and it created conflicts in neighborhoods because some people just followed the rule or the way each neighbor was behaving, but on the other hand, there were other people who said, "No, it's not my business. I don't have to do it." So it created conflicts among people. So it was not the perfect idea, I believe.
Yeah, I'm thinking about right now with the 4 feet of snow on my sidewalk, and I'm pretty grateful that I don't have to shovel that. Mm-hmm. But, it's been very interesting talking about this, and I do love seeing those old pictures of the entire neighborhood out on the street trying to shovel a path down their street. It's sort of felt a little bit like that at times this week as our whole neighborhood has been outside. So thank you very much for taking us down, memory lane, so to speak, and telling us about how it used to work here.
Yes, thank you very much.
Appreciate your time.